Everybody. It is 5:01. We're going to wait a minute or two for some other people to log on before we get started. A couple housekeeping things. There is a chat button at the bottom here for me. Farah is going, my assistant that's on, is going to put something in there now so you know where it is so you can ask questions. We might not get to your question at the moment that we're talking, but we can come back around to it at the end. And then what other housekeeping things? We're going to send out some resources after the class. We have a woman-based blog series that we do at Realty Collective that if you are a business owner here in Brooklyn that is female, or know a female-owned business or female-identifying business that you would like to get featured, please reach out to us. We're always looking to feature new people. Farah will put the email address or form on how to do that also in the chat. And Jessica, you want to start talking? I did my housekeeping start off while we kill some time and get other people to log in.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I see some people I know on here. Nice to see you. I'm so glad everyone joined us. So I haven't done a webinar in a long time, probably since the pandemic, but I wanted to start it up again and really wanted to do something a little bit informal, but informative with a professional who I respect, which is Victoria. She's pretty amazing. Started Realty Collective. Was that 18 years ago? I think you started it, Victoria. She'll be back. And she's also in my neighborhood.
Yeah, sorry. I muted myself, but then unmuted myself. Yes, 18 years ago when I was 25 years old. So much time has passed.
Right. So I've worked with Victoria in the neighborhood. We're part of the Red Hook Business Alliance, which she's a very large part of. And this is absolutely my favorite neighborhood. So if I was going to have a dream home, it would actually be in either Red Hook or Columbia Waterfront District where my office is. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a local attorney. I'm a trust and estates attorney with an office in the Columbia Waterfront District, which used to be Red Hook, apparently. And then it was rebranded years ago by the real estate people when Red Hook wasn't doing so well.
No, I mean, so it was created by Robert Moses when he put in the BQE and dug the trench. Created and had to because what was happening in Red Hook and in Columbia Waterfront is most of the houses were sinking into the ground because it was built on swampland, basically. And so they had to raise all the houses that were on the waterfront, and they dug the trench and put in the BQE and then let housing come back up there. So that's why there's less historic homes on that side. Some of them did get saved, but we lost a lot of the fabric of New York City that was existing there. And that's then once it became a orphaned neighborhood, because it wasn't part of Red Hook and it wasn't part of Carroll Gardens anymore, it got rebranded. I don't know if real estate agents did that, but somebody
No, you don't think so? Somebody did.
Somebody did.
I blame it on the real estate agent.
Thanks a lot.
So I know some of my clients are always looking or have been looking for years to buy a home here in Brooklyn. And we've come to an impasse for many. Everyone's scared to purchase because of the interest rates. So that's actually my first question for you, which is how could it possibly be a good time to buy? I actually don't know what she's going to say. We didn't practice this, everyone.
We didn't run through anything. We caught thought of questions.
So they really are my question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. But I mean, I'm not old enough to have experienced this, but Tina in my office, and when I talk to other people, like paid 8, 9, and 10%, like 5 to 8 years before I bought my house. So I mean, this isn't crazy for within our lifetime. It's not like we're talking about interest rates that we haven't seen since like the 20s or 30s. Like that
Mhm.
was 30% and more in those days. So, I mean, everything's relative. And also, you're not married to an interest rate, you're married to the property. So, falling in love with the property. And, it's really crazy. I'm just going to refer to Instagram. Like, my other friends that are in real estate send me all these Instagram stories, and it's one of the things that has been a recurring theme, because people say this to us all the time, is like, I'm just going to wait till prices come down. I'm just going to wait till prices come down. But historically in New York City, like, prices do not come down. And so the longer you wait to enter the market, all you're doing is pushing yourself up to have to save more to be able to afford more. Like, you're chasing it. So for me, I'm so thankful that I purchased when I did, and that someone convinced me to do it, which was Tina in my office, another real estate person. I needed my own agent to get me over my, I was scared. I was nervous. It was like a huge financial decision. Because I own my own business, I had to have, I couldn't show on paper that I could have, actually afford it. And I had to have my parents co-sign, but like, if I didn't do that, my mortgage is now less. So like half of what I would pay in rent if I was renting my house. And I would have not been able to stay in Red Hook, which I love so much. So if you are have in the position to do so, you should do it find a pathway to do it as quickly as possible. Something that you see as your starter place. Nobody buys their dream place first. Getting your foot in the door is like the most important part of the process, because the longer you wait, the more challenges you have to get ahead of the market. So
What do you think about, and also the rental? Everyone I talk to keeps talking about how high the rental prices are.
Rents are crazy, because what happened is, so, I mean, 2 and 3 and 4% for interest rates were insane during the pandemic. It was a blip in time that, for those that got to take advantage of it, did, but they also paid higher purchase prices, went into bidding wars, had to take financial risks, like waiving their financing contingency and waiving their appraisal contingencies and other things that, if you're not familiar, we can go in more detail about what those things are, if those are some of your questions. But that those were just has never been that low if you look at the track record in the last 100 years. So for those lucky people got to take advantage of it, but we're back in sort of the normal state of what is available, and that you should not be scared of the interest rates, because so what happened was, I was saying about the rental market, is that so there was those moments, so the people that could afford at those interest rates, when the interest rates went up, got pushed out of the market and back into the rental market. And so rents then became much larger in demand, because people left the purchase market but then weren't happy with where they were staying, so we're trying to make moves, and rents became very, very, have gone up like 22 and 33%. I think 22 for Manhattan and 33% for Brooklyn. I mean, it's really egregious. And why continue to pay someone else's mortgage when you can pay your own? You're just, that money for rent, you're never going to see again. You might as well be building your own equity.
What do you think the market conditions are like right now in Brooklyn?
It's actually pretty challenging depending on what kind of product and neighborhood you're looking in, because sellers are scared also, because they feel like, since interest rates are high, that there's less buyers in the market, and that they're not going to get the highest price for their property because of the interest rates. So a lot of people have waited, because they're not it's not like in 2008 where like people lost their jobs and like they're getting foreclosed on and they had to sell. We're in a moment where like people are just like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait it out, and we'll wait till the market changes so that I can get a better return on my investment. So there's less inventory. So that means that, you're not getting the properties that you want aren't coming on the market, and that there's more competition for them because there's less inventory. I feel like it's gotten a little bit better in the last 2 weeks, but up until then, it's been pretty tight.
How do you find homes?
Well, Before, I'm sure some people remember that they used to like walk around to every real estate office down Court and Smith Street and register and like make sure that somebody's going to call them with all the listings. The internet's changed all that. REBNY, which is the Real Estate Board of New York, has made it so that if you have a listing and you're a member, which most people, big brokerages are, like Corcoran, Compass, I don't know, is Halstead still around? Sotheby's, Christie's, all of the like big name brokerages are on the REBNY. They're REBNY members. They're signing up to a code of ethics and signing up to share their listings with the other members of REBNY. So if you are looking for something and you're working with me or you're working with somebody Corcoran, I have the listing. Corcoran agents have access to the listings that I represent, and I have access to the listings that Corcoran represents. And there's a lot of very tight rules about if I list something and you inquire it, I have to respond to you within 24 hours and get you access within 72 hours. They've made it so that you have to abide and work together and stop being closed-minded about and like covet your listings, because I think we've all changed from and heard of these strategies of stop living in scarcity and live in abundance. And then like, if you welcome in abundance, then you don't need to worry constantly about all these things and you'll have more things come to you. So they've really changed that. So you're finding listings by picking one buyer's broker to work with that will then have a back-end database search set up for you, but also go on StreetEasy, go on Zillow, go on the places that you feel are user-friendly and that you want to be in control every day of. Like, people like to look on the internet. It's like looking, I call it, sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but call it real estate porn. It's like people like looking at real estate. It's exciting to them. They like looking at decoration. They like looking at, the different buildings, looking inside other people's lives. It's fun. So look, I think StreetEasy is one of the better websites still because it's free. It's user-friendly for consumers. A lot of other stuff I feel like Zillow is not good. If they constantly mislabel co-ops as condos, like there are websites that you should steer away from. Zillow owns StreetEasy, so you're probably looking at duplicate listings anyway, but the information is just not correct on Zillow, but it's correct on StreetEasy.
See, I prefer looking at Zillow, but now you're telling me.
I prefer looking at Zillow over StreetEasy.
I don't know. It's just something and I get alerts. I get alerts for all over the state, places I'd never even live.
Because StreetEasy is very local for New York City, and like Zillow's the whole state.
So there's no way to find like a hidden gem. If you're looking at an apartment or a house, there's other people looking at it as well.
So there's a couple things you can do is work with a broker that specializes in neighborhood, that if you're like, I want to be in Park Slope, work with somebody that is Park Slope specific, so that when listings come in, like in the like Brown Harris Stevens or Corcoran office through Park Slope, there is a time lapse from when the listing's coming up. They're taking pictures, all that kind of stuff before it hits the market, that information might be communicated to you. The other thing to do is like work with somebody that will then do the legwork for you, find something specific you're looking for. So if like you're in love with 275 Webster or 206 Lincoln, you can be like, that building, I've always wanted to live in that building. That's the building I want to live in. There are strategies that I use to then reach out to all the people in the building. Are you interested in selling? Like finding ways, like same thing. I've always wanted to live on 15th Street. I want to live in a 2-family house on 15th Street. Reach out to everybody on the block and figure out. The difference is though that if those people weren't intending to sell, they probably weren't also intending to incur, the broker's fee and closing costs and other things that come with it. And they need to be handled to get to that point where they're like, okay, well, I will sell my house. You've convinced me and made it appealing enough that I don't have to do all this stuff and your guys are gonna handle because you want my house so bad. So if you want this very specific thing, like living on a specific block, so you find a charming, like Strong Place or Congress or something. We all know, like
I really like Strong Place.
It's only 1 block long. it's dead ends on each side, but it's beautiful with all those trees right by the school. Like it's one of those blocks that has character.
I think James Bond lives there now, I
Oh,
heard.
which one?
I've seen him in his life, but I think that's where they live. But it's a beautiful block. So do you work with anyone who comes in to your office or calls you up? How does somebody find a broker? Can they just call up a broker that they like and they're going to work with them?
So I think that it's a job, just like you're hiring a lawyer, real estate lawyer or a state lawyer. Same thing as like mortgage broker. Mortgage broker is a little bit different because you're trying to negotiate. There's leverage there that you want to negotiate the best deal for yourself, the best rate, the rate lock terms. Like there's several points that you want to negotiate for yourself. But for brokers, lawyers that are part of your deal, like contractors, you want to interview people. It's a job you're hiring for. So pretend you're a small business and that this person is working for you and they're going to be on your team and they're going to be advocating for you. I have a list of questions that I give out freely to interview brokers and for lawyers on how to screen them, ask the right questions so that you can feel like this is the right person for me. And you're making a choice. Do not let the internet, like Zillow and StreetEasy, will put decoy brokers in front of you, like saying that they're the listing agent or the seller's agent, and then they'll call you and then, they'll convince you to work with them, but you should be deciding who you work with. Don't let the internet decide. If you don't have choices that have been suggested to you, call and ask your friends, go on the internet and Google who are the best buyers brokers in Brooklyn to work with. I'm sure that's also paid marketing, but like you could interview 2 or 3 people so that you understand, you want to have enough education to be making educated decisions for yourself. So that's how I would do it.
How does it work? Is it a contract that you sign from the beginning or?
So you have to sign an agency disclosure form that's provided by the state because it's a licensed job, but buyers brokers are paid by the seller. It's much more expensive to sell a house, 8% in closing costs than it is to buy a house. And that's because the seller is taking on most of the expense. And that New York State encourages buyers to have their own brokerage. It's dual agency is complicated and it's not, it's frowned
There's a
upon.
conflict sometimes, right? There could be a conflict.
Yeah, because you're representing 2 people negotiating in the middle and like, you want the deal to happen. So who are you really, that's why a lot of brokers get a bad name is are they really acting ethically and in the best interest of their clients? Because I mean, if there's no delineation of who their client is anymore, because you're working for 2 people on different sides, like you're not clearly in one house. You're in the, like, I want to make this deal happen. How do we get there? You're the mediator rather than the negotiator.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think my first question, since I already know my neighborhood, do you have people that come to you and they're not even sure where they want to be in Brooklyn?
Like everybody. They're like, these are the 10 neighborhoods I would live in. I'm like, that's a wide net. So you want me to tell you what I suggest to them?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you already know where you want to live. So, but what I say is, okay, so make the list, then find out all your friends that live in those different neighborhoods and call them and meet them for coffee, dinner, brunch, all different times of the day. Then ask them what they like and they don't like about living there. And then go to the neighborhood at different parts of the day. Like it's going to be a lot different at night than it is on a Sunday for brunch. And it's going to be a lot different than in the morning during rush hour. Like understand like what it's like all the time, not just when you're going to open houses and viewing listings. And then what, people that really live there and have experienced for a while, their perspective on it, your values might not align with what they're looking, theirs about quality of life and things that are important to you. Like you want to be close to the park, you want to have access to a lot of subways, you want to have lots of options for daycare or school, like better schools. Like you want to know what they appreciate about it and what they don't, and see if it's going to be challenging for you to get on the same page as that's what they offer.
Do you have a questionnaire you give potential clients regarding what type of amenities they're looking for or what type of buildings they prefer?
I can usually help them narrow it down because building type and amenities and don't always align. Like people are like, I want a doorman. Well, okay, well, you can live in Brooklyn Heights, maybe some buildings in Prospect Heights. But doormen that have jobs like are mostly co-ops. So only neighborhoods that offer co-ops. So older neighborhoods that still have, old buildings that don't have a lot of new development and haven't been rezoned. So it's pretty easy to be like align people and have a conversation. Like they want to be close to the city. They want at least five subway stop lines. Like that's only at two places, it's around Grand Army Plaza and around downtown Brooklyn are the only places that you're going to get that much subway access.
What do you tell people who say they want outdoor space? Because I imagine since the pandemic, everyone says that.
Yeah, I mean, if you can afford it, you can get it, but that's like usually so. There's a price per square foot for average for a neighborhood. For condos and co-ops, it's slightly different because condos are more expensive because you're buying real property, and co-ops you're buying into a corporation and buying shares in that corporation. If you're getting outdoor space, it's usually 50% or slightly above of the price per square foot. So you have to factor that in. So if you're paying, if you can afford, we're getting 500 square feet of outdoor space, that's another this amount of money, and compete with everybody else that wants it. I mean, there are spaces that offer it and that offer it like in a co-op. Like we have a co-op for sale right now in Park Slope, a block from Prospect Park on Lincoln. It's a great location and it has a shared courtyard. And, if they want private outdoor space, they're probably going to have to go in a condo, and condo's a little bit more expensive. And then what neighborhoods have a condo that actually has outdoor space? It's just more challenging depending on the neighborhood and if they need it to be private. Like they want new construction, Williamsburg, they made a decent amount of them with terraces, but if they want like a backyard and not a shared roof deck, or, those are the, like, what does it really need to be defined at? Some people are only going to use outdoor space if it's like off their apartment. Like I do.
Right. Yeah. And so sometimes people can so you can narrow down where they can live. And then I guess by what they can afford.
Mm-hmm.
How do people figure out what they can afford?
That's not my job, thankfully. That's a mortgage professional.
Right.
And that's always that's no matter where you are. If it's like you want to buy in the next 5 years, have this conversation now, because if you work for yourself, if you have debt to clean up, like, or your credit score needs to be cleaned up, and you need to work through some things, is like have a conversation now with a mortgage broker, interview some mortgage brokers that you like. Hopefully when you're ready, they're in the industry, but that they can tell you like what a bank's going to look at and what the bank's going to flag as an issue to give you a mortgage, and they're going to give you your buying power, and then they're going to say, you know what, if you saved this much more, or you like negotiated to get your salary up like 5% more over the next 2 years, like you'll be in this bracket rather than this bracket, and maybe you'll be able to, qualify for what you want. So talking to the mortgage professional is going to help you understand what the banks look at, how you look to them, and how you can work to make sure you paint yourself in the best light so you're getting the max loan amount, so you can, I mean, to me, people are always like, I need my safety blanket. So I'm like, max it out, because your house is then your safety blanket, in my opinion. I was house rich and cash poor for the first 2 years that I owned my house. I mean, like eating ramen and, really just had to make it work. But like, it was totally worth it in the end. So at all costs, I took all the risks to make it work, but that's my comfort level. Not a lot of people, their risk level is different than me. I also started my own business. I like risk. It's challenging.
Right. So at what point, so when somebody comes to you and they say, I'm looking for an apartment, this is what I want, and they haven't yet seen a broker.
I say that's the first call, because brokers as a broker, I have a professional courtesy to other brokers to only be not wasting their time and only bringing qualified buyers to their property. And the first step is always getting a pre-approval.
Right. And I know that there's been a lot, I guess we sort of touched on this, but since there's so little inventory right now, we hear about all of these bidding wars. Is that what's going on now?
I feel like there's competition and things are like, if you look at the numbers, things are still not as crazy as they were last year when things were at 2 and 3% interest rates. Things are
Mhm.
selling slightly maybe above asking, but you're not seeing the huge numbers you were before. You're not getting 20, 30 offers, you're getting 5 offers, like, and people are much more willing to say, they really want qualified people and people that they are going to close the deal. So even if someone's offering some crazy number or above asking, it's about the whole picture of the buyer rather than just the number, because will they pass the board? Will they, have enough money if the appraisal doesn't come in to cover a difference of 5%? Do they have,
Wait, what is that last part you said?
like, if it doesn't appraise, if the appraisal doesn't come in, like picking a buyer that's willing to put down like 30% instead of the 20%, then we don't need to worry about the appraisal, and that they are much more likely to get the loan than someone that is like scraping by and only putting 10 or 15% down, or just at the threshold of 20%. I mean, you look at the whole picture of the buyer's qualifications and what they're offering rather than just the number they're offering.
Mm.
Appraisal and contingency is like a whole, we can talk about appraisal contingency for a long time to explain like the difference. Like, say you want to buy a house that's $1 million. The bank comes in and says, oh, the house is only worth $900,000. If you haven't negotiated with the seller side appraisal contingency ahead of time, you're responsible for the $100,000 difference, or you have to walk away from the deal. And at this point, you've spent all this time and money and energy trying to buy this house. So, there's a lot of this that you can negotiate if you are worried about the appraisal. But it's case by case situation. So you want to pick a buyer as a seller, you want to pick a buyer that has room in their bank account and is not, like me, scraping every penny together.
Right.
But at the time, I was the only buyer in 2009 because, things crashed. So I know, Gino, he didn't have a lot of other options besides me.
Right.
Thankfully.
Right. And you have a beautiful property.
Now I didn't like it when I first saw it. So I wanted to buy the place on Walcott Street, the co-ops that had the affordable housing in it. And I was like, oh, I like the model. It's like market rate plus affordable housing. And it was 3 bedrooms. Like, this is only 2 bedrooms. I was like, I'll make it work. I'll get 2 roommates. I can't imagine being a 40-something-year-old with 2 roommates now.
Right. And so, okay. So what do you tell people? Because this, when I'm looking at the real estate porn, I'm like, oh, I could fix that one up. That one, I could fix that one up. What do you tell people who are looking at fixer uppers, or even if they look at vacant lots and like, I want to build.
Lots is a different story.
Yeah.
You don't have to have, if this is your first rodeo, do not buy a vacant lot. You will lose money.
Camping, you're gonna be camping there.
Yeah, basically, unless you're going to get a container, and you're gonna live in the container with like a space heater for a long time and figure it out. But really, first get a couple fixer-uppers that just need lipstick, I call it, like, and then like learn and develop relationships. Because if you've never done this before, even people that have means, they have means then to make mistakes, where people that are stretching themselves thin, like that mistake that they've made could be very costly and honestly devastating for them if they make the wrong mistake. It just design build from the ground up, dealing with the city. You've hired the wrong contractor, you've hired the wrong architect. Even if you've interviewed them, gotten great referrals, you can still hire. I've been in this profession for so long. I hired a contractor upstate. I thought I checked all of their references. I got a copy of their insurance. I didn't call the insurance company to make sure that their insurance policy was still valid, and got robbed and some other things. So it's like, you really need to be seasoned to do a big job like an empty lot. But things that need work, people were really against them in COVID because they just wanted to move in and like move on with their lives and enjoy the thing that they just spent all their money on. And I think the market's definitely changed for that. So there is a demand more for fixer uppers that need, not whole gut renovations, but for first time home buyers, like needs new cabinets, needs new tiles, like maybe need to knock down a wall or something, or redo the floors. Like, start with baby steps, get comfortable, develop your relationships with your contractors, start learning a lot about it so that you can call out bullshit when you hear bullshit. And then once you've gotten your feet, you're more seasoned, you can take on bigger projects as they move on. Like I said, this is your get in the door, buy your starter apartment, and work your way up to your dream house. Like, I always thought I was going to live here 5 years and leave, but I never left because I can't afford to buy things in Red Hook anymore. So, but I'm still happy here. But I also did I bought a house upstate and did the work up there. And Tina and I bought a house in Long Island a couple years ago, and then sold it afterwards. But like, I learned how to do the work and understand what we were doing and what it would take and price things out, so that now I can, eyeball it and figure like this is within your capabilities, and this is like not.
Right. So you're saying that this is your first home in Brooklyn.
You shouldn't be buying a lot.
Right. Right. And you probably shouldn't be doing a fixer upper. You should just be finding something that would be a good investment instead of renting.
I would say that you can buy something that's a fixer-upper that needs new cabinets, new tile. You need to just do a facelift on a bathroom. You don't need to like totally gut the place. Like, it hasn't, someone's lived there for the last 50 years and hasn't done anything. Like, there's levels of fixer-upper. So, I call it lipstick. Like, if you need to repaint, do some new tile, like facelift a kitchen, like putting new cabinets in or putting just new faces of new cabinets in, like, for sellers that haven't renovated, like, there's some things that I suggest doing that can last for buyers also, which is like painting cabinets, sanding and painting cabinets. This is what we did with the cabinets we had up in our upstate house, because it's actually hard to get cabinets in the middle of nowhere. But it was easier just to paint them white. And painting white makes a big difference, when you have multiple clashing woods after time, like with the floors and the furniture and other things. People just, there was a phase in early 2000s where people put all of that dark wood in their kitchens and made everything feel really dark. And that trend is over with and nobody wants it. So, if you still have that kitchen and you're selling and you don't want to do anything, you just want to sell it, a buyer should look at that and be like, I can do that. That's within, I can go to IKEA, and IKEA is great. They will sit down with you, or they will come and measure your apartment, say, this is what you have here, and we'll exactly fit the cabinets in, and then come and install them for you. And countertops. I have my countertops are from IKEA, Caesar Stone. They're great. They do butcher block too, which is even cheaper.
I've seen that.
With more care, but also very cheap and reasonable.
So where do you think that there's good deals right now in Brooklyn?
I think Sunset Park. I'd really like Sunset Park. I think it's overlooked a lot of the time. It's close to great parks. It's close to Industry City, off great subway lines, close to the water, or like you access to the water. You get to a ferry still from there to get into the city or go out to the Rockaways. I really like it over there. Prospect Leopards Gardens and south of the park, Flatbush. I think Bed-Stuy still has a lot of inventory because it's such a large neighborhood. Just depends on how willing you are to live for like long, what type of walk you want to the subway, because there can be things there that are very far or only close to the G train, which I know for some people, like I live in Red Hook, so like subway access is, I don't never think about it. But I also have parking, so it's different story.
Right. And so what if you want to buy a 1-bedroom in Brooklyn? What is the range?
You can buy a 1-bedroom like for $400K in Brooklyn Heights with very high maintenance fees in Brooklyn Heights, because not a lot of people that only need a 1-bedroom want to live there. It's unless you're buying a pied-à-terre, it's for families. Same thing with Park Slope. But Park Slope, I would say 1-bedrooms are a lot pricier because a lot of people buy 1-bedrooms in Park Slope for the school district, which is different than Brooklyn Heights, and make it work and then rent it or move out of it just so they can get their kids into the right school district. So you're competing out against people paying for a premium for something so they don't have to pay for private school in their mind. You know, the range is all over the place. I think
Parents are insane.
everybody's insane. Let's be real. Not just parents. They're more insane because they're under more stress. 'cause they're
Right.
children, but they we're all insane.
And what about Red Hook? What if somebody wants to live in Red Hook? What kind of properties are available?
So there's less. You're so intrigued. You're like, tell me all, Victoria. This seminar is basically for me.
Right.
It's harder to find 1-bedrooms in Red Hook because it has to be new construction because there's
Well,
just
I'd need a 2-bedroom anyway.
okay. Well,
Right.
there's not a lot of condos. The condo developments that have happened are 199 Conover that's on the market now.
I've seen, yeah.
We have 1 or 2 deals happening. One deal that will close in the next couple weeks there, and then another one that's being negotiated now there, which was beautiful lofts, which is what people really always say they want when they want to live in Red Hook and in an industrial residential mixed use neighborhood. But it's a lot of houses. So there aren't apartments per se.
What about Greenpoint area?
Greenpoint, Williamsburg, tons of 1 and 2 bedrooms, because there's a lot of new construction. Those neighborhoods were rezoned in the last 10 years under the Bloomberg administration. So he took away a lot of our manufacturing and commercial and made it residential. And so those neighborhoods have more apartments available to them and have more amenities to them too.
I think that's all my questions. I think if you could just give us a step by step what people should be doing if they're looking. I guess first step, call a broker. I know some brokers if anyone wants a recommendation that I trust.
Mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a list also. It's good if you like my step is, so yesterday we did our Buying into Brooklyn class, which I do every month. And I encourage everybody, if they're ready to make next steps or even not, and just want to learn about the beginning to end of the process. It's a different format. Jessica and I are doing another one next week on will and estate planning. So if you haven't done that yet, you know, where you can log on, but this was just a Q&A that we did. So I have a whole video, and class that we do for Buying into Brooklyn. This takes you from the beginning of the process to the end. Beginning of the process is to create a team. You're curating a team of people that will work together. I had suggest a list of people that I have worked with in the past because I have over a decade-long relationship with most of them, and I can hold them accountable. I can call my mortgage person and say when things are going wrong and why isn't this happening or what's going on, and they report back to me and stay in communication with me because they want future relations and business from me, and they have already had that for so long. We have a proven track record together. And
Right.
same with lawyers, like you want a team of people that know each other, so there's accountability. When I don't know the lawyer or the mortgage, like I don't have as much leverage. I don't have as much communication from them because they don't like anything towards me. They feel a responsibility to their client, and that is it. And I'm just another real estate broker. So it's nice when you create your team that you create a team based on, okay, I like this one person, and I'm gonna try to pick somebody that they recommended because they all know how to work together. They have like a proven track record of closing deals together. So that's where I usually start, is telling people to create their team, then talking to the mortgage broker and getting them to lock in some specific terms that you want to negotiate for yourself. Because that's always the person on the team that can be the most easily swapped out because they're not offering the best terms. Because you can negotiate points off, you can negotiate lock rate, you can lock rate extension rates, like how many times you can relock without paying a penalty, the best interest rate for a lot of people are doing ARMs right now. And that's just how they're making it work, is doing a 7-year ARM, and that people are getting 5% and change for a 7-year ARM. You just have to, refi in that. So those are the people that really you actually have leverage, because most real estate brokers are gonna be like, it's a flat fee between $200 and $3,500. And, there are questions to ask them to make sure that it's not just them, that they have a team, that they have legal aids that are going to help facilitate actually supporting them, and how many.
Because it's a lot of paperwork, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like quick responses. If you have a lot of deals and it's just you, you're not going to be as responsive as you need to be, and things can fall through the cracks, and it
Right.
can delay and cost you like paying for an extension. The lawyer doesn't care, like.
Right. All right. That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah, I have a step-by-step thing that would take very long time to explain, not even in the 18 minutes we do have. So that's the starting point. I can happily invite you guys or send you the video from yesterday. And also I can send anybody here. I think Farrah, I know we didn't talk about what we sent, but I have a home buyer handbook, and I can send you our YouTube channel that has all my past classes on it and tons of resources. I really believe that like gatekeeping and sort of scare tactics is what is bad for sales in general, and that, I want everybody to have all of the information so they can make educated choices about who's the best for them, and advocate for themselves. Because when you don't know what you're doing, like, it's the worst thing to just pick randomly and then regret those decisions.
Right. Yeah. Well, does anyone have any questions?
You can just take yourself off mute too. We don't need to put it in the chat.
Right. It's not that many of us here.
Yeah.
You only get like a quarter or less of the people that actually sign up, I guess.
Yes, the attrition rate is very low for these.
Right. All right.
I'll ask a question.
Oh, great.
Sure.
Sorry if there's a child screaming in the background though. I'm just curious what you said about like just getting kind of a first starter home and then kind of moving on. I'm sure I'm not the only person that feels like I feel like I kind of missed the boat on that because I was moving around a lot earlier in my life and didn't, have the ability to do that earlier. Now I have a kid, and seems like, you kind of just have to go for it. So just kind of curious what you say about that and like the time frames that you think are realistic. I know you said you end up staying in your place much longer, as people do, but curious what you think about that.
Well, I don't have anybody else, like a child, forcing me to move. And since I can't afford anything else in Red Hook, there's like not a motivation for me to do. But when you're motivated because your children are living in your bedroom, you're going to make the right decision and, figure out how to move on to your, not the start place that you got to get yourself in the door, but get to the next place. It's easier if you buy a condo instead of a co-op, because you can, if you are not in a position to sell, but you need more space, you can rent it out more freely than the co-op, so that you can rent it out and use those funds to then help fund your rental in the right neighborhood with the right size and things you need right away for your kids, rather than having to go through the whole sale process that won't be like an immediate decision for you, but you then still are building equity and still have the property. As we can see, what's happening now is that rents are going really high, so that in most cases that even if you bought it, that the mortgage was slightly more than your what it would be to rent it, that after a couple years it's gonna catch up with each other, and that you'll be able to rent it for more than your mortgage is.
I know my cousins they bought co-ops. Actually, no, one was a condo, one was a co-op in Brooklyn Heights years and years ago. And they were studios, and they lived in them for a long time. And then when they sold them, they made, $500,000 or more on that sale, and were able to bigger and bigger. So I guess that's what you're really talking about, is just trading up.
Trading up. Starter apartment, you need to start somewhere. It's not about having like your kid apartment or single apartment. Your starter apartment is where you start at, and then you trade up to get your dream place that like we all imagine will one day live in, like Carrie Bradshaw's apartment that was never realistic for a journalist to live in, and had a walk-in closet with all those clothes. But or the brownstones that you walk in and awe at, that like you'll one day get to have that lifestyle. So can't start there. You need to start somewhere, and that's with something that you can qualify to get a mortgage on, and actually have a decent quality of life, not the ideal quality of life that you would like, but you could live there.
Right.
And not murder people that you're living with.
Right.
Other questions? And Becca, did I answer what you asked? If there's something I need to clarify, just let me know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. But you also said that you should max out as much as you could possibly afford, get the biggest house.
You know, it just depends on, like risk. If you're buying a co-op, they need to see money left in the bank.
Right.
They want you to have reserves. For me, like I was comfortable not having savings after I bought, and the bank was fine with me not having savings. Like they were fine. So whatever the bank is telling you that you have to have minimum in your account afterwards, but like I didn't worry because I own my own business and know that like I will just do whatever it takes. I was gonna figure it out that it was gonna be okay no matter what. Some people don't have that sort of comfortableness with risk, and that they are like, I need my security blanket, I need $50,000, God forbid I lose my job, God forbid, you know, something else happens, like they need some money there.
That's a good, here, that brings something else up, right? How do most people afford a down payment?
So, savings, you know, they got lucky in crypto. They borrow against a lot of people borrow against their, you know, retirement. Because if you have one, then there is a clause in there for a first-time home buyer that you're allowed to borrow a large amount without a lot of penalties to buy a home. And that's one of the benefits if you have started a job. You know, my husband, he thankfully he didn't buy his house. He inherited it from me. But he has it so that he like maxed out his contribution at the beginning of his career so that it steadily grew, and then you know, he is in a position where he has a healthy 401, you know, TDA or 401k, so that he could be in that position to buy something and borrow a large amount of it against that. Because the government used to very much create programs like that to encourage people towards home ownership.
And what about gifts from family members?
If you're in the position to be able to get those are great options as well. You have to get a gift letter for the bank. If they're putting it in within like 3 months of the purchase so that they can explain it. You have to explain it to the bank, how it showed up in your account, unless they give it to you before that.
Right.
But
And
like, what is it, like 15? I don't know if you remember, you're not like you're up on inheritance and stuff. How much can the government give you? The parents can give you 15 tax-free a year?
No, 10,000.
$12.94 million you can gift to anyone throughout your lifetime and at your death. So yeah, that 17,000 that they talk about is just above that.
Okay.
So even if it comes down in 2026 to what they're talking about, 5.5 to 6.7 million, that's still how much you can give away.
But it's still for the person receiving it, it's still tax-free.
No.
So it's tax-free up to a certain amount though. So that's why I think it's the 17.
Always tax-free.
Always tax-free.
It's a gift. It's not income. So you're not going to be taxed on it. Aniko, did you want to give money away?
Actually, I did. I did. Yeah, just recently because I'm just at the very beginning of becoming more active in changing my apartment into maybe too small, because I would love to have for my son a small place, and for myself too, because it's a big place.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the cash came in from my Hungarian, not much cash, unfortunately, because that was just when the worst time in Europe, in the war. It was just really like a bummer. But I wanted to go, I just wanted to give it to my son. It was 10,000. That's what I was told. That's all I can give.
No, I don't know who told you that, but no, you can give $12.94 million
Without dying.
Yeah.
Without dying. So it's a unified tax credit. It's federally, it's combined. So the death tax, that's what they call it when you're a Republican, but the estate tax and the gift tax are combined right now. The law changes over the years, but right now it's combined. So during your life and at your death, that's how much you have right now to give away, tax-free.
Wow.
It was 10, like pre-Trump. And then it changed, Trump changed a lot of tax laws. And that's when it increased.
Right. So pre 2018, it was about 5 million. And then it's going back to that in 2026, adjusted for inflation. But it's so high right now, it doesn't really affect anyone. And then there's a separate estate tax in New York, but no gift tax. So there's never any tax for the giver or the receiver unless you're going over that federal
So good
amount.
to know. Yeah, so good to know. Yeah. Because it can be for down payment or something.
I mean, any income generated after that, of course, you're shifting income. So if it's a brokerage account or whatever it is, of course, then that can become income. But yeah, gifting is great. I don't have anyone to gift to me, but if I did, I would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are the ways. Usually it's gift, borrowing into your 401k, getting a second job, donating blood for other organs.
Right. Right. It's a lot to come up with, right?
It is, it's really challenging. At the time, like when I bought, because of the market, like I was in the position where I could only, there was products available from the mortgage broker where I only had to put 10% down, which those have become harder and harder. I mean, my biggest encouragement for people buying is that it's not going to get any better the more we let companies buy up real estate and push us out of the market and become the majority of landlords are big companies like Blackstone. We're just going to keep ourselves from building long-term wealth and equity for ourselves because they're making it harder and harder for us to find pathways to home ownership. So the sooner you can do it and get out of your landlord being a company. So when you asked who I work with, I don't work with everybody. I don't work with companies. I don't work with management companies, developers, anybody that's using housing as like a vehicle for profit. So most of the people I work with are, I work with real people. The landlords I work with are like all mom and pop small landlords that have inherited their properties from generational wealth. Very local Cobble Hill Carroll Gardens, like they grew up here and it's their parents and their sisters and their aunts, they all lived on the same block and they got 5 houses or whatever. So I'm only working with real people, not companies, to help them either rent, buy, or sell. I don't work with anybody that's, like I'm a developer, I made this house, these things, and I want to gouge people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're great. Thank you.
It's just a different
thank-
strategy that's a niche
Right.
not being filled to make the world more equitable.
Mhm.
Any other questions while we have you guys before we hit the hour mark? I know everybody else probably wants to get on with the evening and start dinner and other plans.
Well, thank you, Victoria.
Great.
I should definitely, oh, there's, I know Dana. Dana, do you have a question?
Really quickly, I figured I could follow up afterwards or just ask it now. So Victoria, you said you do more of a class style every month.
Yeah, we do a class called Buying into Brooklyn every month, and we do a class every other month called Selling in Brooklyn. So it goes over the whole process. There's the lawyer that I work with, that was my lawyer when I bought my house, and a mortgage broker on the call, and we go step by step from the beginning to the end of the process, just giving the just basis of it. And then I also, if you end up working with me, like I have a library of resources that's set up in Basecamp to like help educate you at every step of the way, because there's so many things, I've been doing this 20 years, laws and other things change. So there are sometimes I learn things, but just that amount of experience, it's hard to always communicate it all. So that's why I provided at your fingertips as much as information that I think is relevant so you can be educated on the process. So Dana, we'll send out some information afterwards, and, anybody that wants to engage with it, you have it. And, I'm also happy if, you're not looking in New York City and you're looking outside of the state, like my list of questions for brokers and lawyers, so that you can advocate for yourself in other states or other arenas that we're not part of.
Awesome.
Maybe you
Thank
can
you.
come live near us. No.
Sounds like a great plan. I'll be a waterfront to
Nice
this.
neighbor. We're very close to each other.
Okay, well, thank you, Victoria. Thanks everyone for coming. This was great.
Thank
Yeah.
you for doing this. I am so like excited to hear all this information. It's priceless.
Oh, good.
I
So
really
nice to see you,
appreciate
Anika. We'll have to get lunch.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jessica and I are doing another class next week talking about wills and estates, and if you want to join, we're going to go over some of those things.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
Well,
great.
thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Guys.
Thank you
Thank you.
again.